Want help to grow your business? Download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi, I'm Dale Beaumont and welcome to Secrets Exposed. This is a show that takes you up close and personal with experts on important business topics. And our topic for this interview is how to become a social media influencer. That coming up in just a moment. My special guest today is CEO Lucy Perry, and our topic for this interview is how to become a social media influencer. Lucy, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us, how did you get started in business? Tell us a bit about your background.
Well, I guess I got started in business by accident, literally. I had a massive motorcycle accident when I was in my first year out of high school. And that forced me to really think about what I wanted to do. And it meant that I had to have a really flexible work life because I had an injury that I had to get over. And it took years to get over that massive motorcycle accident. So I set up my own creative services firm. So I had been working for an ad agency and I learnt a lot in that agency in a short period of time. Then I set up my own creative firm and I ran that for 20 years. So that's how I actually got started. Was an accident forced me to rethink what I did, and instead of being an employee, I became an entrepreneur.
Okay, now I know normally you wouldn't necessarily talk about your achievements, but I'm going to ask you to tell me a bit about some of the highlights over that 20-year period. What were some of the wins?
Yeah, sure. Forming that company is one of those. I started it when I was 19 and I ran that company all the way through my breeding years. So I was able to have 3 kids and run a company and earn a great living. I didn't have to take wads of time off to have my kids. So I managed to make all that integrate quite well. And that got to about $1 million turnover a year. So it was a tidy little business and it was fabulous.
Staff?
Beg your pardon?
Did you have a handful of staff?
Yeah, there were a team of 4.
Great.
Was all that we needed, and a range of different clients. I bought easily, so having lots of different clients from sporting codes to bikini brands to fast-moving goods. I like the variety of lots of different clients to work on. So that's definitely a highlight, was creating that company and having a really flexible life around that and being able to earn a living and have family at the same time. Then at about the 10-year mark, like I said, I bought easily, so I was looking for something to interest me, something else. And not long after I had my first child, I created the world's first childbirth education program for men, and it's run in pubs all over Australia. And that was just an interesting thing to develop as a communication piece. I wrote a book that went with it. Then I franchised it nationally.
So it's a childbirth program for men that's run in pubs or bars, and you franchise it. Tell us a bit about how you did that.
I ran it by myself for 6 years before I took the program, before I made it national. And to be honest, I was exhausted. I had too much going on. I'd had more kids. I was running my company and I thought, running Beer and Bubs, it was called, running Beer and Bubs is too much. I need to can it. And
you still had your other company going during this time.
Yes, that's right. I thought, I just have to can it. It's too much on my plate. So instead, I franchised it nationally. I thought either kill it or make this into something really nice and big that it becomes a nice little business in its own right that I can sell. So that's what I did. And I found presenters all over Australia who could present the program, and they would give me a cut of every session that they ran, and they sold my books through that network. So I made a lot of money selling my books that way, which was fabulous. So that was a win too. And then I went on to sell that business, and now it's still thriving. And I think it's a successful business if you can run it really well and then sell it, and the person who buys your business runs it really well, and it's successful for them too. So I love that program, and it's actually changed a lot of lives. It's pretty fabulous, the feedback we've had over the years from that program of men who've then been so much more engaged in the birth of their baby than they would have otherwise. So that's a wonderful win. Another win that it was a fabulous career highlight was when an amazing humanitarian, an elderly doctor, appointed me as her first CEO, and that was my first role as a CEO in Australia. And she appointed me as the CEO of a brand new charity that she needed me to create, and that was one amazing startup experience because I had to build the team and the strategy for a charity that wasn't very well known at all in Australia, and we raised $7 million in 2.5 years, and really took that name to a household name. So that was a huge achievement. And then the next big highlight for me really is being plucked out of nowhere by another amazing Australian humanitarian, a lady named Geraldine Cox, and she came out of nowhere, asked me if I'd like to have a coffee. I knew of her, I'd seen her on 60 Minutes, and by the end of a 1-hour chat, she offered me the role of CEO of Sunrise Cambodia. So that was fabulous. And she'd never had a CEO before, so the role was created for me over caffeine. And I've only been in that role now for about 5 months, so that's my next highlight.
Fantastic. All right, now you've raised a family, had a number of businesses along the way, a very active speaking career as well. We're going to talk a lot about social media during this interview as well, and also doing a whole bunch of work for charities. How do you manage so many things at the same time?
Look, I guess I have a lot of energy, but I want to ask you a question. If I was a man sitting in this seat, would you have asked me the same question? I think that question gets asked to women a lot because we're the ones juggling everything.
Yeah.
So that does drive me a little bit nuts.
Yeah, sure.
A man wouldn't be asked how he's managed to raise a family.
I think if we keep it even generic in terms of overwhelm, a lot of people, even men and women, are just overwhelmed. Even whether it's technology or whether it's family or whether it's it's feeling guilty about not being fit or going to the gym. There's just so many competing priorities in our lives these days, and I think it's a struggle for. I'm always interested. How do you kind of keep it all going?
Yeah, I don't think I've perfected that because I've had my burnouts absolutely, and I work hell for leather, and then I crash, and then hell for leather, and then I crash. So I'm not sure I'm the best person to give advice on that. But something I have discovered, and it was only in the last year or so. I was 42 before I worked out what it was that I really love about what I do. You hear it over and over. People say, do what you're passionate about, but that's so, it's so abstract and so broad. I worked out just recently that what I absolutely love is creating momentum. Creating something that people dig and want to jump on board. That's what really makes me thrilled. That's what gives me butterflies, makes my heart pound, makes me do stuff and ejects me out of bed in the morning. So I guess I try to focus on the things that really do float my boat and make me happy. And those are my kids. And that is the business that I'm working on the charity work that I'm working on. I just stay focused on the things that are awesome and try to let the other things go to keep life as simple as possible.
Great. All right, we're now going to start to talk about social media, and there's heaps of different questions we're going to go through together. But when along your 20-year kind of business journey did social media kind of kick in? Was it early in the day when social media was just popping up, or did you kind of leave it till later before you jumped on board?
Yeah, I would say I'm an early adopter, but having said that, social media is very new to the business communication landscape. So I joined Facebook in 2007. Facebook only was expanded outside of Harvard University in 2006. So it's very new to the scheme of communication. I ran a business from 1993 where we had no social media as part of the communication pie. But I was definitely an early adopter.
And why did you choose to embrace it early? Because a lot of people that wait to the very last minute and only when they're forced to do they act, but you saw an opportunity and you decided to embrace it. What was it? I just liked
the look of it. It just interested me, and I was travelling all over Africa, and I joined when at that time so that I could keep in touch with the people I met and specifically the doctors that I met all over Africa. So that's why I joined
So
initially.
It wasn't really for a business application at the beginning, that came later, but...
It was a networking application. I could see it work beautifully for that. And my very, very first Facebook friend is an obstetrician in the UK. Her name's Jenny, and she was from Scotland, and I met her in Ethiopia. And we are still connected, and we still chat, and that's what I love about Facebook, is someone that I met in 2007 that I would have lost track of, definitely, is still someone that I communicate with often. So that's a wonderful thing. So yes, I was an early adopter, Facebook first.
And then what came next?
Then I think Twitter was next and Instagram after that. And I've dabbled in other platforms in a business context, but those are the three I use personally.
Okay, now why do you think it's important that more business owners embrace social media and even develop the skills, which we're going to talk about how to become a social media influencer?
I just think it's essential. I can't imagine a CEO being locked up and inaccessible. And that's what social media does for you. It makes high profile people quite accessible. It's wonderful to be able to tag someone who's quite high profile and for them to respond to you. It's wonderful. So it seems essential to me that leaders, celebrities, anyone who is high profile is accessible in that way and uses the medium well.
What do you think some of the other benefits are of social media?
I think the number one benefit for a user like me is to develop a community, and then I can call on that community when I need them. But you can't call on that community to sell tickets or make a donation or do whatever it is that you do unless you're serving that community. You can't just rely on them to feed into you. You have to feed into them 99% of the time. So that does take some time. But I think that's the biggest benefit of social media is I have a fabulous community of people who I can call on when I need them. It's wonderful.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to take a short break. When we get back, we're going to go through more details around how to become a social media influencer. We're going to talk about what platforms to choose, what are some of the things you should and should not do on various platforms as well. How do you manage all the different ones that are out there? How do you make the choice? And then also we'll go through some strategies about how you can integrate this into your business on an everyday basis. Keep watching. We're back in a moment. Welcome back. We're speaking with Lucy Perry about how to become a social media influencer. So we've spoken about how Lucy got started in social media as well. What are some of the benefits to business owners? Now we're going to go through some more detail. So let's start with asking a broad question, then we're going to go down and drill into more specifics. Sure. So the big question is, how do you become a better social media influencer?
I think the only way to become a social media influencer is to serve your community, and I've touched on that. You need to, every time you engage with a community, how are you serving them? So it's important not to be banging on about your product constantly, and rather what would really serve this community? What would they love to hear today? What would be useful to them? So I do stacks of sharing my knowledge, lots of sharing knowledge, sharing apps I discover, sharing ways of doing things better that I've discovered, quick, Lucy's top 5 tips for things that would help my community that they enjoy, and then they share that and the community grows. So I think that's the best way to become an influencer, to be authentic, to be the real you. I'm just Lucy. I'm the same Lucy on Facebook as I am at home or in the office. I'm the authentic Lucy. I'm not a brand. I'm not an online Lucy. I'm just Lucy. So to be as authentic as possible, to be accessible too, so that your audience can come and talk to you. So people send me private messages all the time, and I make sure I reply them as much as I can. So that serving your community, being accessible and being the real you, I think are the most important ways to becoming an influencer.
And when you say serving your community, obviously many people start off with just a personal profile, and they're called friends, for example, on Facebook. So do you start with just serving those friends, and then later on you can actually develop a business community as well? How do you kind of draw the line?
Exactly, yes. Yeah. Start with your friends' network. And I took a step and created a personality page. So I've got a Lucy Perry CEO Facebook page. And that's grown so much faster and has a much bigger community. And that has a more business-focused social media, communication, just the stuff I'm good at. I'm happy to share on that page. And then my personal page has become more my friends and family. But yes, that's the starting ground, is that smaller network that is friends and family. And they're your best cheer squad anyway.
So for many people, they'll start with their own personal profile and then possibly they develop one from their business, or if they are the brand, they might develop a personal brand page.
Yeah, that's ideal.
And then what are your tips for engaging with that community? You've already mentioned about serving them and adding value and helping and being authentic. Any other tips you'd like to share?
There's lots I've learned over the years. My number one tip of the day at the moment that I can see is really working, because Facebook particularly, the algorithm changes often, is tweaked, because Facebook wants the best content delivered to your newsfeed, and they work out ways that is tweaked to deliver to you the best content. And something I've noticed is really working is to keep an eye on trends and jump on the bandwagon of trending topics. So on the right-hand side of a desktop version of Facebook,
to continue enjoying this presentation, download Bryn, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit bryn.ai or search the App Store today.